Hi everyone. Hi Veerashti. How's it going? I'm just waiting for Janani Lakshminarayan to join this conversation. For those who don't know, Janani is a fabulous writer and a food blogger, and also a very dear friend of mine. We both are often discussing matters of parenting. We love music, and of course I love food, and she's a fantastic host as well. I think there she is, so I'm going to ask her to join the conversation. Hello.
Hi Akila, how are you?
Good. Wow, this looks like we're almost color coordinated.
I thought so too.
Janani, I can't hear you very well.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, I think
Just give me a second, Janani. I'm just going to, just give me a second.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yes, hi back.
How is it going?
So far so good.
Yeah, it's lovely to be able to like meet you on Instagram chat instead of having to meet you in person.
Yes, and it's also lovely to dress up.
I know, right?
Yes.
In some ways, this whole Instagram live series, because of all the dressing up, has really helped me like keep my sanity, you know?
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah, Janani, so firstly, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of Panjavarnam Silk's series in the company of the Saree. We will be talking about the Saree and all the things that you're so passionate about: food, writing, parenting, talking about breastfeeding. We will address all of that. But before that, I want to introduce you to the few people who've joined this conversation. So for those who don't know, Janani Lakshminarayan is a freelance writer passionate about food writing, exploring different cuisines and tracing the origins of culinary traditions around the world, and also parenting experiences revolving around breastfeeding, baby-led weaning, and children's literature. In her own words, she says, in the distant past, I mean, she's obviously not that old, Janani. You really make it seem like it was really back in another era. But then in the distant past, as Janani says, she studied to be a computer science engineer and enjoyed a brief stint as a database administrator in the corporate world before discovering her artistic inclinations. She switched career paths to foray into studying journalism, which opened her mind to a different perspective of life before she found writing to be her truest form of expression. And it absolutely is, Janani, I must tell you that. When she's not traveling or writing, Janani loves to conduct culinary experiments on her unsuspecting family. Together with her husband, Sikil Gurucharan, the well-known Carnatic musician, she's deeply committed to parenting two children with ideals that are steeped in intersectional feminism. We're also going to talk about that. But
Looking forward.
firstly, Janani, I'm going to start off by asking you, I've been watching your posts and I feel like through this lockdown, you've been like way more active on Instagram than you've ever been before, cooking such fantastic food and like really making us all really crave for like eating food that's not made by ourselves, but also like motivating so many people like to kind of participate in the process, share what they cook and really experience the joy of cooking. Do you feel that the lockdown has allowed you this time to rediscover your interests and passion?
There's definitely a lot of cooking after the lockdown has begun. No doubt about that. Well, there have been amazing days where I feel the energy to cook a lot. There have also been the exact opposite where I don't want to move a finger. I want somebody to actually give me even water, like wherever I am. It's that tiring and exhausting sometimes. But yes, I have had a lot of time to work on practicing so many things that I want. I mean, trying out so many things that I wanted to try, like handmade pasta or savor and things like that. When you make it from the beginning, from the scratch, right?
Scratch.
So yes, so that,
Right.
and it's also the joy of giving your family fresh food. That's a motivator too.
Right.
But yes, it has also been lockdown meant that my husband is also around to engage the children, so he's not been traveling ever since
Right.
the corona was here. So that means I get some time to engage with what I
Right.
love, doing, which
Absolutely.
is very integral to this. But writing about it, not so much. I don't get as much time to do that
Time
because
to
it requires a sort of an environment where you need to get into the mode, right, to write.
zone, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Right, right. Generally, I'm just, I always try to kind of like look at the people that I'm interviewing, and I often notice that there is one sort of, for people who wear multiple hats, I often notice that there is one thread that kind of connects them all. And in your case, correct me if I'm wrong, I somehow think that that's got to be tradition. In some sense, I feel like there is a sort of inherent sort of this underlying notion of tradition and everything, whether it's about food or the way you like to parent, or your interest in culture and tradition. And I somehow feel like, there's this sort of, even in your writing, there is this sort of subtle reinforcement of staying rooted, celebrating everything that is simple, but also constantly kind of exploring, right? I want you to talk about what excites you about tradition, and really why tradition must be really lived in, a constant, continuous process for it to really become a way of life.
Well, you opened the Pandora's box for me. So, no, I would probably more relate to the memories associated with tradition than with the
Okay.
tradition itself.
Right,
So, what I love being associated with is stuff that from my childhood I've been. It's an integral part of my life, right? Celebrating festivals, or the kind of food that we eat on festivals and things like that. But tradition, as a blanket term, not so much. It doesn't really appeal to me
right.
because when I say I'm an intersectional feminist and then I say I follow tradition, then there's so
Tradition,
much of
yeah. It's a bit of a,
there's so
yeah,
much of fiction, right?
contradiction, right? Yeah,
So I always associate with the memories that are part of a tradition than with the tradition itself. So
right,
that's my relationship with it. So whatever you've seen me write about in my food or in the festivals that we celebrate, they're not actually following tradition per se, because I do all this irrespective of whether I'm menstruating or not. So that's not
right,
traditionally followed, right? But
right.
I
Absolutely.
don't give importance to that. So
To those kind of,
things
yeah.
like that. So you see what I mean, right? There are no barriers that are there in my mind or in my surrounding for me to follow these things. That's why I say I can't relate to the tradition as it is. So it's just a
Right.
matter of what I've been uh, enjoying from my childhood, like people who have been a part of it, like my grandmothers or uncles and my parents and in-laws and all of them. We all have a story, right? My husband's side of the family. So I just want to pass on these things to my children so that we are rooted to our, family and not to the tradition as it is.
Right, but you don't you think, like, there is a sort of when you're kind of transferring memories that are associated with tradition, you are, in a sense, that in itself is a tradition, right? That in itself is a transference of culture, right?
Yes. So what we love talking about this at home, that what is today we think as tradition was probably once an innovation, right?
Yeah,
So we are trying to set that ball rolling by creating new things to follow. Like for example, we actually have a Christmas breakfast at home, though it's not part of
right,
our childhood or anything like that. We still
right,
make Christmas breakfast. So I make biryani on Ramzan, like a vegetarian biryani on
right,
Ramzan. So these things, I feel that it's just a hope that when my children grow up, so they have something to relate to from their childhood that they can actually pass on. So which is actually not tradition per se, but it's something that
yeah,
I've created, we have created together as a family.
right,
Keep them, engaged with their roots.
right. Janani, but why do you think, like, this kind of creating memories, right, for children especially? Why would you think that that is really like imperative, so to speak, right?
Because it is, it's so deeply associated with the culture, with their identity. So we are
Right.
actually facilitating that for them while they're growing up, right? That sense of identity around the
Right.
culture. But at the same time, be aware of how what we call as culture or tradition or part of our privileges can actually be debilitating to another group of people. So we need to
Right.
be mindful of that as well, which is why I stress that it's not tradition as it is that actually appeals to me. So, for example, I'm wearing black. That's not traditionally worn generally by,
Right.
unless I'm pregnant or something like that, and I'm actually bare necked. So that's also not traditionally. It's taboo, right? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Don't yes. So yes, so these are things that I want to show them that which is part of our tradition, but we don't really relate to it. For example, when I cook, let me come to a relatable point. Like I make
Yeah.
naivedhyam for Umachi that we pray like Krishna Jayanti yesterday. From my childhood, I've had this pet peeve that we make naivedhyam. We take so much effort to make something, and then the salt is more or less in it, and if we don't find it palatable, how do we offer it? So I actually don't mind tasting it or letting my
Oh,
children taste it. Yes, so even before the naivedhyam is done, so I don't have a problem with that at all. In fact, I've had
that's
this
nice.
going with my party, with my mother, telling them we cannot eat it. So how can you offer it to somebody that you actually really revere and respect and love?
Right.
You don't do it.
Right.
So that the
Right.
same, I can't think of it as two ways. I wouldn't give it to my husband or my parents that
Yeah.
food that
I
is.
mean, that's such a fascinating point, right? Yeah.
So this is why
Right.
I said that it's just my own tradition. Probably it's my own.
Right. Yeah, of course, right?
Yes.
I mean, we
So
create for ourselves our own context
yes,
of traditions, right? Yeah.
absolutely.
Janani, I'm very curious about your relationship with food. Even when we've met and we've chatted, you've often talked about, your grandmother, your uncles. I wanted to ask you about, what is your relationship with food? Like, did you enjoy food even as a young child? I noticed that you plate these really interesting meals for your children, and one of them is just as old as my son, and I'm just literally like like just, and I look at it and I'm like, oh my god, I better like get my act together. But did you grow up in a household where food was a very important aspect of the entire scheme of things?
You already know the answer to that. It's a very big resounding yes. So food
Right.
was an
Talk to us a
integral
little
part.
bit about that. Yeah.
Yes, it was an integral part of our growing up. So we had a culture associated with food, I must say. So everything that we celebrated or more, everything had a relationship with food. And for my children, I always felt that they need to be, I created their, what do you say, preferences in the sense I fueled it in a way that they get variety in that one meal, but they don't have a choice. Meaning, if they don't like something, I won't give them an alternative to it. Like, okay, you don't like it, this is all there is to it. So you can have whatever is around in your plate, but you cannot make me get you something else that's not a part of our meal at all. So there's no special
Right.
food for them just because we find something, we think that they might find it spicy.
Not
So we don't have that kind of a concept going in our house from the day one. That has
right.
actually helped them try different things. So we also have a kind of it's an unsaid rule that they will have to taste it before they actually reject it. So without tasting it, just going by the appearance, and half the time it has come true that they don't like the look of it, but they actually find it tasty, and it's worked
Tasty.
out the other way too.
Yeah.
So I think
Absolutely.
that sets the precedent for them to experiment going forward in everything else in life as well, right? What was the first question that you asked me?
What are your food memories, Janani?
Yes. So I think my Instagram, or I have I think there's a particular food memory associated with almost every person I meet I've spent time with. So I have a post coming up about Wangi Bath. So that's a relationship that I
Okay.
have with my grand aunt and Wangi Bath. So
Right.
with my grandfather, I always remember the way he slurped his food. I might have had a full meal, in my house, and I come visit my grandfather. the very demeanor of his at the dining table actually would make me really hungry again. So these kind of things
Wow.
that I associate him with, and my grandmother's, all the pandigay samal, all the festive food that she makes. And for a person who was, in the 70s and 80s, who's been cooking around that time in a traditional Brahmin household, she's been the epitome of progressive, thought. Not just my maternal grandmother, or even my paternal side, my paternal great grandmother, for that matter.
Wow.
So all these have laid the foundation for my relationship with food, the way they cater to other people, and not just the women, even the men in my family. Like my dad cooks exotic food very well, in fact, way better than my mom does. So my mom
Right.
is more for the traditional, or the hello, can
Sorry,
you
I
hear me?
completely lost you. Now I can, yeah.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it's clear.
So even the men cook pretty well. So they have we have a standard. So it's just not the
Right.
women. My grand uncle, my uncle, in fact, he lost his wife 5 years back, but after that he's discovered this joy of cooking for
Okay.
himself. So
Yeah.
things like these, where we and he makes amazing pasta and paratas and everything. So I feel that all of these. So when I meet people, there's some food memory associated with them. That's what comes to my mind.
Right. Right. What is your favorite, like, if I were to ask you, like, your favorite childhood food, comfort food or something that sort of comes to your mind instantly when you think of home?
It's rasam sadam and urlakirangu roast. No, actually, there are too many. So this
Sorry,
is just
Janani,
that one.
your internet connection is a bit, sorry, Janani, your internet is a bit wobbly.
Can you hear
Yeah,
me
do you
now?
want to change it from Wi-Fi to cellular data or something?
No,
4G or
no, I
something?
have absolutely no cellular data at home. It's just the option of
Okay,
Wi-Fi.
okay.
But are you able to hear me now? Let me hold the phone.
Yeah, it's a little better now.
Yeah. So I was saying, what were we talking?
No, we were talking about your favorite food from
My
like
favorite. I
childhood.
said comfort. Comfort food is probably rasam sadam and a potato roast. But
Of
that's
course.
just on the top of my head. I think
Yeah,
the list is way too big.
right. Right. I've been noticing this thing that the Murugakai thing that you've been posting and a whole bunch of people sharing that. Talk to us about that recipe.
Right. So when I was in college, engineering college, there was this friend of mine. So we used to study together. And my excuse, I mean, we used to study together. It could happen either in my house or her house. But I'd always urge her to do it in her house so that I can visit her. Her mother cooks really well. It's culturally very different, but it's some amazing food that I learned also from her. So this Murungaka Tokku is something that I learned from her mother, my friend's mother, and I have never had till then. I had never thought of the Murungaka in another avatar than perhaps as
Sambar.
sambar or soup. My mom used to make soup, which I thought was
So,
so innovative.
wow, very
But
good. Yeah.
but beyond that, I had never had anything else. Not even a poricha koramba, because poricha koramba is something that I learned from my husband's side of the family. So we had
Right.
a very tiny repertoire when it came to murungaka. This was something that I found was very intriguing, and it also tickled my taste buds. It was amazing. It had a lot of garlic, just how I like, and the tartness from the tomato. So overall, I felt I had to do that one day. Suddenly, I started craving her mother's food. So that's when I decided that, and I had some good murungaka in hand. So I decided I'll try and figure this out, and that's how the recipe came about from my
Lovely.
memory of her mother's murungaka
Right.
tokku.
Also, I've been noticing this really nice pal kurukutes. Have you been doing that as well?
Yes,
Oh, that looks so good.
thank you. That is again another. It's not really something that is made in my family, but my husband's side,
Right.
yes. But this is again something that I learned from my childhood friend. So I have something going with every childhood friend. some memory of food. I used to visit her house before going to party class together, so I used to learn music together with her. So her mother used to make this every Adi Velli Karma. I think she used to make pal korakattai.
Right.
And I always like anything that's steamed. I had a tendency to appreciate it more because for some reason it was very comforting. And this pal korakattai had something to do with that. I
Yeah.
didn't know what was back then that it was probably this, but I think that's what makes it very something among my favorites.
Right. Janani, the joy of cooking is one thing and the joy of eating is quite another. But in your case, like you also enjoy food, but you also like to cook, right? Like I really enjoy good food, but I hate cooking. So, talk to us about this. What is this joy? And I also know a lot of people who love cooking, but don't like to eat their own food. They're like, I just cooked so much and, I'm just done sort of thing. I'll be happy with other people eating it. What is this joy of cooking and eating, and what is this joy of sharing it like collective, like when eating it with people? I'm sure you also one of those who enjoys that.
Yes, absolutely. But my love for cooking actually began with cooking the things that I like. That's how I started to cook because
Started.
I was living by myself in Bangalore when I was working, and I couldn't keep having outside food on a daily basis, all 3 meals of my day. So that kind of forced me into learning how to cook. But I began in a positive way by learning how to cook things that I really love. And then from there on, there's no looking back. So it's always been, the more you learn these things, the more you want to cook because you know that you can't get it elsewhere. You miss home, then you can make it yourself. So I learned how to make peas pulav and curries and aloo paratha and stuff like that. So I used to make it for myself, and actually I found it easy as well because it was just me. So it wasn't too much of quantity. So and it wasn't to please anyone either. So I could even if I didn't, if even if it didn't turn out well, I could still
It
eat
was
it
okay.
because there's so much effort that went into making it.
Right.
So kind of, yeah. So that, and of course, from there on, it started. I mean, even my friends, then I take my own cooked food to office, and then everybody appreciates it. That's enough motivation to share it. So I start making food more often at home, and then taking it for other people who don't have the means to cook. So that's how it began. And then from there on, I love hosting people for meals, even today. So that's something that has always been it's been associated. I mean, it's been amazing to do that, and also the fact that people enjoy it. It gives you more motivation to understand that you're actually doing something all right.
Right. Lovely. Janani, moving from food, we'll now talk about the sari. I want to know, like, what is your relationship with the sari? Like, when did you discover it? And you said in the beginning that it was nice to dress up, right? What is it? Everybody says this, what is it about wearing the sari that really makes us feel like, okay, wow. And we still don't wear it every day. If it makes us feel so good, why is it that we have not yet made it but that's another question. I want to
Yeah.
first ask you really about, when did you discover the sari and what is your relationship with it?
Yes. So I discovered the sari pretty early when I was probably 2 years old. Yes, my neighbor. I mean, I think it's with most kids. I mean, I see my own children; they have a fascination for it.
Yeah.
A neighbor actually bought me a sari when I was a child. So she's Prema Mami. So Prema Mami actually gifted me a sari as a 2-year-old, and I used to love draping it. I felt like an adult. That's probably why I used to love draping the sari back then,
Right.
and it sort of gave me an inherent power. I don't know. I was probably a teacher. I
Yeah.
could be whatever I wanted when I was wearing a sari. Otherwise, I was just a child. It was some sort of notion like that, which is
Right.
how my relationship with sari began. But going forward, I've not been a very regular draper of sari until probably in the last decade and a half. So till then, it was more like the exotic, traditional clothing. But now I can say that it's something that I find as part of my functional wear. Stuff that I enjoy wearing even on a daily basis. I don't find it
Yeah.
uncomfortable to wear a sari. So I actually wear
Right.
saris to pick up my children from school. Uh, it's just I don't need a reason to wear a sari anymore. So that's
Right.
how far I've come from back then. And I find
Right.
that the sari is so versatile. It's also deeply it's also my deep rooted cultural notion, because I've been around women who wear sari culturally, and the fact that it's versatile, meaning I can wear, I'm yet to find an occasion for which a sari is unsuitable. So
That's
I
true.
find that I wear it. It's probably the type of sari that may vary, but I still feel that a sari is most suitable for, for almost every occasion that I can think of. I've never had reason to say, okay, this event I cannot wear a sari. I'll have to probably wear something else. So I've never had faced a situation
Yeah.
where I had to say that to myself, which
Right.
is something, which is saying something about it, right? Because I don't find
Oh,
that
yeah.
versatility with any other piece of clothing that I own. Not
Absolutely.
Western wear, not other kind of clothes that I wear.
For sure.
So that is one thing. And the best thing is, you never outgrow a sari. So you can
Yeah.
wear your sari from 10 years ago, from 12 years ago, without that feeling that, look, how you've changed, how your body has changed, triggering memories of probably childbirth or weight gain or loss or whatever it may be, an image issue. So
Right.
you don't have to think about all that when you look at the sari. So anybody can wear a sari, irrespective of what kind of a
Yeah.
body that you have.
Yeah. It never
Which is
judges you, right? Yeah.
absolutely not. Which is what I love about it.
Love about it. Yeah.
It's
Me too.
yes,
It's also,
and
it's such a accommodating and a forgiving garment at the same time, right?
absolutely,
So
and
inclusive. Yeah.
absolutely, and you have a sari for every sort of a mood. So you want to, look demure, you have a sari for that, the way you wear it. You want to look,
Powerful.
like party wear, you can still wear a sari and look fit enough to,
Yeah.
like in your own mind. I'm not saying that societal standards, the stereotypes for party wear, that's not what I'm getting at. But what I mean to say is you'll still fit in, not stand out, when you're, or
Yeah.
whatever, in the positive way.
Or you could stand out too.
Yes, exactly. So you want to look good, feel good about your body. I find that sari is an instant pick me up for me. During my postpartum period, if I knew that my moods were, dipping, just wearing the sari would help me so much to cope with it. So there were so
Wow.
many days when I used to wear the sari, and I used to feel good about my body, about the power of it, what it has created, what it has nurtured and nourished, and everything. So that is something that I find possible only with a sari. I don't have any other piece of clothing that I wear and I feel, instantly
Instantly.
elevated in mood.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
look at the jeans, for example, right? You wear it and it reminds you that you've gained weight or that you've like aged or
Yes.
that.
Yes. And trends have also been uh, very nice in the sense that you can wear sari with a t-shirt or a shirt or a crop top or a blouse, like a well-fitted
Yes.
blouse, or spaghetti, name it. You
Yeah.
can change the
You can
sari
style it.
accordingly. It's so versatile that way.
Right. Janani, you talked about postpartum. So I'm going to sort of make a little detour and ask you about, that you're also like really, you write a lot about, motherhood, parenting, breastfeeding. And I think you've talked about postpartum as well. Could you talk about, I'm sure there are a few women listening in. So I would love for you to talk about, why it's important to not be afraid and talk about these things and actually find a support group, because many a time, like, I feel like uh, we all deal with these things, and often we're so we have to allow ourselves to be vulnerable and talk about these things, right? So we find like comfort and empathy from those who've probably been through a similar experience. Could you talk about how articulating it helped you kind of like writing about it or giving it expression helped you in some way deal with it or cope?
Absolutely. The number one thing is, when supposing I wrote about it very recently, so I'll tell you from that perspective what triggered me to write about it. The fact that I'm a mother who has gone through something like this very recently, meaning the last 5 years, is reason enough for somebody or a lot of people to relate more to me than to a medical expert or to somebody who's providing care, because I'm one of them, right? So I'm one of the people who are experiencing it because I'm someone who's gone through it and who they can actually see that has coped with it, or at least that's what it seems like, right? So
Right.
that's one of the reasons what triggered me to write about it, because um, even a small mention of something like this, I got so many messages asking for how I dealt with this aspect of postpartum, that aspect of birthing and breastfeeding and things like that. Which is when I thought, there were so many things in when my journey of parenting began that I wish somebody had told me. These things I had to find out the hard way most of the time. So
Absolutely.
so I wished that everybody has probably, like, all the women in my family have gone through it, but it's been many years since, and the world has changed so much ever since too. So the ways we cope with it, the problems that we face, all of these have also evolved accordingly, right? So we
Right.
cannot keep them as reference points to deal with a situation that
Yeah.
we're currently facing.
Yeah. Also, I think, Janani, like back in the day, like our grandparents, mothers also, maybe I'd say, like, there's also this thing of like, they also tell you that suck it up, right? Don't talk about it, just suck it up. And we are definitely not going to do that, right? So,
Absolutely, which is why I felt the need to write about it. Because what I find is every culture has its own way of dealing with physicality of birthing, so how
right.
you cope with it. And the thing is, I found so many contradictions in from culture to culture, which is what made me think. So how is it that we're all Indian women, and we all have, like, kind of a similarity of race, right? And how is it that something works for me and it doesn't work for somebody else? So they do the exact opposite, which means that there must be some degree of superstition associated with it, which is lack of factual evidence, which is what made me think when I was going through this, that I should probably listen to somebody who will help me cope with issues than who will help me cope with the postpartum, the immediate, like Natu Vaidyam. So you immediately rub hing on the tummy, they say, when a child is having colic. So you do that. Some cultures advise against it. Some cultures actually advise to go for it.
Yeah.
So I found that maybe for some people it works, and some it don't. I mean, it doesn't. But eventually, when there's something wrong that happens as a result of this Vaidyam, you don't go to your grandmother for treatment, do you? You go to the doctor, right? So why would you do something that a doctor has not advocated, that you would want to, overlook? This is what I found to be very problematic, that everybody who I heard, or stories in my own family as well as outside, everybody had this to say, that we have gone through it, so we know better than you. You've just delivered. There's a whole world ahead. We've gone through it, and we've overcome the pain, so we know better than you. And you do something like this and something wrong happens, then these people are not able to help, so you have to run back to your doctor to
Yeah.
figure things out. So I just
Right.
found it really hypocritical, so I decided that I'm not going to follow all this, and my family was also extremely supportive of this decision. My husband was on board. We were on the same page as far as all these were concerned. So even things like paitamava, kadalamava, using powders on the children, all these things were probably followed when I was a child and when my husband was a child, or whatever. It probably worked for us. But you see the impact of particles on the human body, right? I think there's no better time than this corona to actually understand that. So when a
Yeah.
doctor says that you're not supposed to use dry particles like powders around a child, like an infant, it may cause respiratory distress, I believed it. So I had very good guidance that way for doing these things. So, and I think that was probably integral in this choice that I consciously made, because I thought I had my privilege allowed me great guidance.
Yeah.
I have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, of
So I
course.
can't say, oh, I figured it out on my own. So it allowed me the access to this kind of, um,
Knowledge.
yes, knowledge, access to these kind of people who are also on the same plane of thought. So all these
Right.
actually, I just thought not everybody has the access to that same kind of thing, right? So I just found that that is enough motivation for me to write. If I don't write about it now, when it is actually something of greatest relevance, because I've gone through it quite recently, then there can't be a better time. So, which is what made me write, and also an account of somebody's bad experience triggered a lot of anger in me. So they actually threw away the colostrum after giving birth because the milk. They thought that milk was really watery, and some grandmother asked the mother to throw away the colostrum, and she kind of shamed her into believing that she's incapable of producing milk. So these things were what triggered me to share my experiences with parenting, the beginning of parenting journey.
Right. Dr. Uma is here as well. So at this point, Janani, I'm going to ask you also about, you also have been writing a lot about breastfeeding. And, you also, in your introduction, you talked about how you're, you love to sort of document and talk to people about their breastfeeding experiences and share yours. Why is that sort of chronicling of these experiences or documenting these experiences important? Like, I'm just curious about why it's important to not just kind of discuss it, but also to document it.
Pretty much what I told you now, because not everybody had the access that I had. There were people from, I think my classmates from college who were from a very remote place in Tamil Nadu. So she had a completely different experience with breastfeeding. While she was encouraged to breastfeed, the minute the child started to cry, every cry from the child was associated to hunger. So things like that, which I didn't face, I just felt that it's probably in the best interest that you make them aware that it need not be hunger for which the child cries every single time. So every time it's associated with hunger, what you start doubting, right, whether you're not doing something right,
Yeah.
and from there it's like I like how I wrote. It's like the dominoes effect. From then the stacks start falling one after the other, and it can completely ruin your peace of mind. So what the main reason for me to chronicle these experiences is I haven't had all kinds of experiences, but I've heard from my support group, which was integral to my journey, about a varied experiences people have had in their breastfeeding journey, which is why I found that cultural practices contradicted each other so much. And I couldn't just figure out how one worked for somebody and the same practice didn't work in another culture. It can't be. I can't trace it to any physiological explanation. So these things are what prompted me to write about them, document them, so that at some point when people who feel related to my work, I mean, who are able to relate to my work, find some kind of a use from it.
Right. Janani, but also, breastfeeding is also such a sort of a personal sort of an emotion, right? Like, I mean, you need to have a great experience with it. Like for me, it was just like, if I had to like wean him off early because I had to get back to work and things didn't go well for me. So how do you also like, like there are also a lot of people with not such great stories with regard to breastfeeding to share, right? What would you say to them, for example? I mean, I'm just kind of like,
Yes, I understand what you mean. Uh, my own journey hasn't been to my satisfaction, which is to say, given a choice, I would have probably continued to breastfeed until my children weaned off naturally. But I could not do that for my own health reasons. So I had to get some investigations done. So I had to wean them off forcefully. And it was actually painful doing that. Painful having to watch them, painful having to go through that experience. So I won't say everybody has it easy, or till then I've had a relatively easy experience. But the guidance that I received played an integral part of my experience being easy. But that is not to invalidate the experiences other people have had. But the fact remains that it's still the cheapest option available to nourish your
for
child,
sure.
right? So
Right.
as long as there are forces at work which prevent a person from doing something which is as beneficial as breastfeeding, there must also be the opposite, where people are encouraged to breastfeed so that it's a primal instinct. So you would be able to do it in the sense, I'm not saying everybody, but I'm not saying it's natural either, but I'm just saying that there are so many forces at work that hinder that journey. right?
Right.
It could be capitalism, you name it. Like, there's so many ways in which there are vested interests that can benefit from, stopping people from doing something that is as primal as breastfeeding. So
Yeah,
that
for
also
sure.
gave me like motivation to talk about it, to say, see, basically you're just giving you're facilitating someone to make an informed choice. That's all. It's not about
Absolutely.
telling women that if they're
This
not
is,
breastfeeding then they're doing something wrong. That's not the aim at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
Not at all.
yeah.
Because your situation is different, my situation is different, your needs, my needs,
Correct.
everything is different, right? So we take
Absolutely.
decisions based on our circumstances. So that is what I feel is important, that every person will definitely make their decision based on, we are product of our circumstances. So we will there's no need to judge another woman for the choices that she makes.
Right.
But I just
Right.
hope that whatever choice a person makes, she makes it, as an informed decision. That's all. As an
Informed
informed
choice.
choice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Right. Janani, I'm going to talk a little bit about music with you. I do know, I mean, you're married to a musician. I know that you've also learned music for a long time. Am I right?
Yes, I have also learned to sing
Yeah.
Carnatic music. I was a budding performer when I entered college and around that time, but I was never interested in performing.
Okay.
So my family, my dad and my brother, both of them play the mridangam. So my dad
Okay.
had, it was his passion, like something that he would do after his hectic day at work. So he would come back home and freshen up and take mridangam lessons, like from his guru. And
Right.
it kept him going, kept his sanity. So I also started learning the music from a very young age, but I somehow could never. I love the art form, but I could never like myself performing, which is why I never got to that point. And I'm so glad I
Right.
married a musician because it takes the focus off my music. So nobody asks me to sing anymore. So I'm happy for that.
Right. So
But,
are you in a certain way like Charan's biggest critic? Maybe I should
no,
ask
I won't
Charan this
say that
question,
because
but
my knowledge is not that wide, but it has made me appreciate music a lot more. The effort that goes into a performance, there's so many aspects that go into performing. So it actually makes me appreciate the art form a lot more than I used to. That it has been my own understanding of music. In fact, interesting piece of information is that I kind of met my husband because of this. Uh, my interest in music. So I joined my journalism school, and in my interview, I was
oh,
asked to
I
sing.
remember the story. Yeah.
So I was
Go
asked
ahead,
to
tell
sing,
us. Yeah.
and after a point, one of the teachers, I got admission. After which, I think somewhere down the line, uh, there was a course on how to report and how to review. So we had to understand the differences between reporting something and reviewing
And
something.
tribute.
So my teacher actually wanted a set of students to go and report a concert. But they had no idea of Carnatic music. They were Hindustani singers, in fact. But my teacher called me and said they do not understand Carnatic music as a performance format. So why don't you go to the concert to help them? So that's how I went to the concert,
So
and
you
that
went
was
for
the
Charan's
concert.
concert.
Yes. So this, I had no choice. My teacher just said, "This is the place, and it's a free concert, so anyone can go." It was a Kalakshetra, and it was, I think, it was the launch pad for Charan and Anil's performances together. So I
Oh,
think Anil played on MS Amma's piano, and that's the concert that I attended, and from there, I think things
wow.
took a different.
Lovely. Yeah, somebody, Namrit 10 says she remembers how you met Kalakshitra. Yeah.
Yes, so her family has been integral in doing the matchmaking.
Oh, no wonder.
Yes, it's her grandmother that brought the two of our families together.
Right. Hi, Gayatri. Okay, so Janni, I also know that you love traveling, and you also write talk to us about like how the lockdown's been like making you miss all your traveling more. And when the lockdown's finally over and things get back to normal, where would you like to go?
Anywhere outdoors is okay for now. So I can't be a chooser for now, but Anywhere outside the walls of the building, But
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
I love
that's true.
traveling. And I've also been conscious in raising children who can adapt themselves very well to different situations, which is what I feel is an integral, aspect for them to enjoy travel. And they've indulged me a lot, I must say. So
Right.
I think travel kind of opens your mind to so many things, cultural perspectives. Um, it's quite amazing, a learning experience, I must say. So that is something that I feel even my children, when we travel to some place that uh, we might not have experienced that culture before, like say something Spanish or something like that, which we're not familiar with, the way they adapt to that situation, to whatever is available, to the changing uh, schedule and things like that, that's something that I feel we must consciously inculcate, that translates
Right.
into so many things coming back to daily life as well. So there's no hard
Right.
and fast rules that we go with, right? When we travel, everything changes. So the need to adapt is very high.
Right.
And you don't get familiar food. So if you're picky, then it becomes
Then
a
you're, yeah.
problem. So I've never had to carry any food anywhere that I go. I make it a rule that I don't carry anything. There's no pressure cooker.
So
There's no
they,
dal.
oh,
It doesn't. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I just found that the minute I have backup, it's a natural tendency to turn to it all the time.
absolutely.
So I think I work better under pressure. So if I don't have backup, it means I have to find something which is, which can fulfill my needs of that time. So it has actually worked well so far. I've never had any issues. My children have never had any issues. Um,
It's fantastic.
yes.
Yeah. Janani, like talk to us about your parenting style. I mean, you're obviously like, you in the last 45 minutes that we talked about, you talked about so many like values that you've inculcated with the children in terms of, in terms of food, in terms of flexibility as far as travel is concerned. And in many ways, food is a sort of an essential starting point, so to speak,
Yes.
right? I mean, but like talk to us about your style for parenting. Like obviously all of us have like different styles, and obviously no story is better than the other. But in a certain way, are you like a hands-on parent, spending like 13, 14 hours with them, or are you letting them be? I'm just curious about what kind of a parent you are.
Uh, I am a hands-on parent, yes. I also crave for my own child-free time too. So some I
I think
have
I'm
to
losing you,
spend.
Janani.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Are you able to hear
I
me now?
am a little better. Yeah, this is
Okay,
good.
now? Yeah. So I was just saying that I am a hands-on parent. I get to spend a lot of time with the children, which is why I value my child-free time a lot. So, and my husband is as hands-on as I am. That way, I get a lot of time too when I need it. That being said, I think I'm very conscious about raising them to be aware of. Can you hear me now?
Just a little better.
Now?
Yeah, this is good. This is good. We will wind up with this, Janvi. Sorry, I think your Wi-Fi is a bit.
Yeah, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just saying that I'm very conscious about raising them to be aware of the privileges that they're born with. So I don't want to say that they're oblivious to it, that they do not know of the privileges that come with their birth, the fact that they're middle class. They're you know what I mean, right? So many privileges that come with
Yeah,
their caste and things like
absolutely.
that. So I don't want them to be oblivious to it. So I need them, going forward, I want them to be aware of it and to make the choice whether to use it or not. So that's my aim. Where I find that that's what sets you apart. So that's what brings about change as well. So a lot of people, we talk about feminism, we talk about gender equality and discrimination and all sorts of things, but eventually when it comes to a matter of exercising our own privilege, we want to go for it. so we don't think twice about doing that.
Yeah.
That's something, and I find that that's also very rampant, saying that I want to bring them up with no knowledge about this caste system and marginalization and stuff like that. But that only means that they only become oblivious to it, that they're not aware of it, that they have certain advantages and stuff like that. So this is one of the things that I've also wanted to talk about, given an opportunity, that they should be able to understand where there's so many inherent notions that need change to bring about a better world tomorrow, right? Things like menstrual taboos or inheritance, for example. So everything, like today, the privileges, the things that we consider to be normal, like, we all
Normal.
have driver's license. Yes, they all came because of so many sacrifices. I mean, we are wearing a blouse because somebody sacrificed her breast, like one of us, right? Like the Nangeli story that we hear and things like
Yeah.
that. They need to be aware that this kind of change has to be constant, that they have to strive for it. And in the small day-to-day things is where these things manifest themselves in your
Yeah.
mindset, in your outlook,
Yeah.
in the way you react, and the way you treat people, women, and all that. So that is the thing that I've always been conscious of, and my husband's also. We discuss this a lot at home. How, for example, this morning in my child's school, they had a book reading where there was a book about the living room. So where they discussed things that were in a living room, and there was a sofa in the living room that the parents sit. There's a bookshelf where the father keeps his books, and we assist our mother in cleaning the living room. So these things are found deeply problematic. Like, what kind of an impression
No.
does it give? Mother's always cleaning. That's the kind of thing that they get into in their minds, right? For
Okay,
example,
I have a story to share as well on this
so
same subject. Like
so
in
these things, yeah, I'm very
yeah.
sensitive to these things. So my son, without my having to nudge him. Of course, he was muted, but he was on mute, which is the class happens with all the children muted. So he was telling me that I will help you clean, but Appa cleans also, something like that. He said, which is something that I realized. Okay, I must be doing something right for him to think this
Yeah,
way.
for
Uh,
sure.
so these kind of small things, like you say maa ki hath ka khana or whatever, right?
माँ
Like
के हाथ का खाना.
amma kaivarnam, you say. You never hear of things
Yeah.
like appa kaivarnam or samayal pandravaroda kaivarnam. You don't
Well,
hear things
Janani,
like that.
you'd be surprised, even in today's context, the teacher will, like, in online Zoom class, will just say, like, ask
Ask
your
your mother.
mama, ask your mama, ask your mom. And I never sit on the Zoom class. It's my husband who sits every day. And so my son's always looking at my husband and saying, why is she always saying mama? What is
You
this
see
assumption
how
that we make
these things, yes,
so
in the
deeply?
smallest of things.
Yeah,
This is what I need to make. Even my children need to be aware of this. That my daughter asked me this question. So why do they always say "Amma samaikirudhu"? So we have somebody who used to cook for us before the lockdown began. So it's a male
right,
cook.
right.
So she asked me, what don't why does it always come as a lady being the cook, like all the pictures that you see. So this was her observation from I
Yeah,
think books or whatever that she was made to read. So these are the things that I want them to question. So this questioning happens only when we are also aware of these sort of
absolutely.
discrepancies that I am very sensitive to. So today I'm thinking that I should probably write to the school that they need to be more sensitive to the kind of content that they make the
Yeah,
children read. Even simple things like I've talked about it a lot too, about the concept of family. So family need not necessarily be a father, mother, child, brother, sister, whatever, right? It can be an aunt and uncle raising a child, or it can be, two mothers or two fathers. It can be any kind of a combination. It can be just the grandparents raising a child.
two
So
women. Yeah,
yes, these kind of things, I feel that it's up to us to bring about that sort of, exposure to our children for them to think and bring about change when we are looking at. So these small things that we need to be conscious about. This is my parenting style, that I'm very sensitive to
Right,
it.
like
And I hope,
intersectional feminism, like you rightly beautifully
yes,
said.
yes.
Absolutely.
Intersectional feminism
Power
per se,
to,
meaning I am a woman, so my voice is already, marginalized because of it. But can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
little better, little better.
Yeah. So what I'm meant to say is that I'm a woman, so because of which my voice is already like marginalized. But there are
Yeah,
also factions of the society who are much more marginalized than my own voice. So I need to speak for them
yeah,
as well. That is why I always say intersectional feminism, because it involves those who are more marginalized than I am. So I speak for them too, and I need to be aware of
right.
my own privileges, the fact that I'm a woman of color, but I'm able-bodied, I'm heterosexual, or I'm middle class. All these give me privileges, so which is which is all, like, works to my advantage. I can just go on about it, but there are others who are much more, who have it worse than me, so I'll have to probably like include them in my struggle as well, right? Which is why I keep saying that intersectional feminism.
Right. No, it's beautiful. And more power to you, Janani, for all that you do and for
Thank you.
keep writing more and inspiring us to like enjoy food. And every time I see your posts, I'm inspired to like, plate my son's plate just a little better and like try and add some color to his plate and like I have myself, like, I never thought in my life I would start cooking, but the lockdown has made me also somewhat of a cook. And I'm starting to like ask my mother for recipes, and she's nothing but shocked. But it's fabulous, and I want to kind of it's like after like a 20-year career in the corporate world, I feel like I'm finally coming home, and I'm starting to feel so much joy in actually like the little things that I seem to have missed in like pursuing ambition in a career. So thank you, and thank you for writing and sharing such fascinating stories. And I hope to catch up with you in
Pleasure is mine,
person once
Akila.
all this is over.
Thank you so much for having me on this.
Lovely, Janani. Take care.
You too. Thank you. Nice
All the
talking to you.
best. Bye bye. Thank you to
Bye
everyone
bye.
who logged in. See you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.